I really wanted to love Mafia The Old Country. And to be clear, it's not a bad game. Visually, it's one of the few games that truly looks current gen with some of the most realistic cutscenes ever and a story that keeps you engaged till the very last moment. But good graphics and an interesting story alone aren't enough to keep a game engaging. Games are constantly evolving and that evolution isn't always limited to their looks, and even when they're not trying to reinvent the wheel by offering something you've never seen before or play it safe if you will, they still try to offer a premium experience that's actually better than what we were used to see in the past. I had this feeling when playing A Plague Tale Requiem and Star Wars Jedi Survivor despite all its issues. These are some of the examples of games that play everything safe but still offer a good balance between their gameplay, visuals, and storytelling. Both titles came from teams with multiple years of experience and both improved almost every aspect compared to their predecessor. But unfortunately, Mafia The Old Country does not fit into that narrative, and interestingly enough, it's not completely the game's fault. It's actually an okay game, but the real problem lies with Hangar 13, the studio behind The Old Country. I'll get back to this momentarily. Actually, let me get something clear right now. The production value, cutscenes, facial animations, and the acting are all phenomenal, and because of the story's linear nature, The Old Country doesn't suffer from poor pacing. In fact, it's far from poor thanks to the fairly standard storytelling it offers. But you don't have to worry about spoilers since I'm not going to talk about the narrative at all, and honestly I don't have much of a criticism toward it anyway. Also, when it comes to gameplay animations, they're naturally not on par with the cutscenes, but they're still decent. However, you know what's funny? Compared to the work of a top-tier studio like Naughty Dog, Mafia really feels behind. Just look at Uncharted 4, a linear game from almost a decade ago. Not only does it still hold up incredibly well, but in some ways it actually surpasses The Old Country. But then again, that game was way ahead of its time visually, and most titles, even the ones I mentioned earlier, really can't hold a candle to it. So, yeah. Anyway, the overall look of the game is insane to put it mildly. I couldn't stop staring at the environments thanks to Unreal Engine 5 and the game's art direction. Everything feels alive and incredibly detailed. What I love the most is how you can spot something interesting in the distance, then actually travel there, and it looks just as good up close. It honestly made me more excited for what other studios are going to create with this engine. But I digress. The Old Country is sleeping on a mountain of missed opportunities, and my real criticism is aimed at Hangar 13, not just the game itself. Mainly their vision for The Old Country and how they've left the game stuck in the past. You see, Mafia The Old Country's gameplay asks you to go from point A to point B, kill someone or grab something, then rinse and repeat. Often you get to choose between a car and a horse and they all have their own stats. It really feels satisfying and fun to use the faster vehicles. And much like Rockstar Games titles, when you're heading out on a mission, you'll hear cool dialogue traded between the characters during the ride, revealing more about their backstories and the world. Then once you're at your objective, depending on the task at hand, you'll either perform basic stealth with lots of insta-fail checkpoints, or a shooting section that relies on the game's dated systems, like hiding behind covers similar to early 7th gen titles, against mostly unintelligent enemies with a gunplay that in my opinion doesn't feel as good as Mafia 3, and no, it's not because of the difference in guns themselves, but rather the animations, weapon feedback, and the sound design. Occasionally you'll encounter a boss fight where you go into a hand-to-hand melee combat against one enemy and fight them using a combination of blocks, light, heavy, or counterattacks. It's not too deep, but it really looks cool. There are also some main missions involving races with cars or horses. Sometimes you can search the environment for collectibles that unlock bits of lore, other times you'll find photograph locations, and occasionally you'll come across charms that grant Enzo gameplay buffs. Believe it or not, that's pretty much it when it comes to the gameplay variety. Like, those races I mentioned earlier could have been a great opportunity for you to participate in them as a side activity to earn more money. Not just that, but the entire world, thanks to its world building, demands all kinds of activities from boozing with friends to collecting money, causing chaos, going after other gangs, and so on. But none of that is in here. Which made me wonder, where did Hangar 13's ambition go? This game doesn't offer anything more than Mafia 2, a game released 15 years ago, and that's the problem. Mafia 2 was heavily criticized for its lack of innovation and content back in the day, when the series was still under 2K check. Once development shifted to Hangar 13, they tried to push Mafia 3's ambition by adding more content both in its story and its open world. Unfortunately though, due to poor implementation, Mafia 3 forced players to do lots of uninspiring, repetitive tasks in between its otherwise awesome main missions, which had a remarkable way of storytelling in my opinion. So the team scaled down their vision in their next project, Mafia Remake. At the time, I didn't mind this change because I believe they wanted to stay faithful to the original title without making unnecessary changes to the gameplay. But seeing them carry that scaled down vision into the old country was really disappointing. Now bear in mind that the studio set a clear expectation for fans and has been pretty transparent in their messaging during the game's marketing period. They actually informed us that the old country will follow a linear gameplay and narrative. Look, I personally have no issues with linear games, especially since I play lots of open world titles. A compact experience every now and then is really necessary for me to help me enjoy gaming so much more. But I'd be lying if I said I enjoy outdated game design in a modern title for the sake of linearity or simplicity. Now by modern design, I don't necessarily mean that every single video game should become an action RPG with character levels, multiple dialogue choices, a huge open world map, and skill trees. Of course not. You can still create a game in different genres and avoid making it feel like an older title. You see, the old country has an open world that remains completely useless. Even those rides from point A to point B I mentioned earlier can be totally skipped, meaning the game's telling you that these filler parts are not forced onto you and you can just ignore them, and therefore the open world remains underutilized till the very end. Look, back in the day, we had GTA-like titles that weren't made by Rockstar Games but still tried following GTA's open world formula by offering lots of fun side content fitting into their world and narrative. So this made me wonder why the old country missed the opportunity to fill that gap. Was it to combat unnecessary bloat or help with the development time? While I partially appreciate Hangar 13 if any of those were the reasons, why not make the game a level-based linear title at this point instead of creating an open world map for it? Wouldn't it reduce costs and development time even further? But enough with all of that. Is it worth paying $50 for Mafia The Old Country? I bought this game for two reasons. The first reason is that I genuinely love the series. From the first game to the remake, I loved and played every single one of them multiple times, and despite all the criticism Mafia 3 received, I enjoyed it for its story, vibes, and shooting mechanic. The second reason is that I purchased this game with my own money so I can have a slightly less biased opinion when answering whether you should buy it or not. So if you care more about the visuals and a heavily narrative driven game, but can turn a blind eye to outdated gameplay with almost no replay value, then absolutely go for it. But if you care more about gameplay elements, The Old Country will not satisfy you with its old design and lack of meaningful content besides its story. In my opinion, you should avoid it at least at its current price tag. While we're talking about the price tag, it's worth noting that the developers have promised to add a free ride mode with new activities and gameplay content in the coming months. At the time of making this video, we don't know much about it yet, and while I genuinely appreciate that the world of The Old Country is finally being utilized because it absolutely deserves it, this really should have been there from day one. If it does bring critical gameplay changes, well, that's great. But my only hope is that this doesn't become a trend for future games in the series, because whatever Hangar 13 cooks up next needs to be feature complete at launch. Anyway, I wanted to love this game, which makes it all the more disappointing that I didn't. It feels like I'm replaying something from decades ago just with a fresh coat of paint. Look, I do enjoy safe games, but not when the devs behind the game forget we're in the second half of the 9th console generation, not the early days of PS3 and Xbox 360. Now before fully wrapping things up, I'll say this. While I don't personally like the no-ambition approach of Mafia The Old Country, Hangar 13 clearly respected the older titles, especially the first two games, and in doing so they gave us the kind of linear experience some players missed. I get that, but what worries me the most is how this studio will approach the next entry. Will it also be another incredibly linear game reminiscent of the old days, or will they finally grow their ambition and modernize the series in the right way? Only time will tell. In the meantime, I know some of you really enjoyed this game for what it was, while others didn't, so let me know in the comments what you liked or disliked about Mafia The Old Country and what your hopes are for the future of the series and Hangar 13.